Hello, and welcome to this 1 hour training session we called Don't Foster, Become a Resource Parent. This is Resource Parenting Basics with me, Camilla Zucchiani. I am a resource mom, and I have been doing this for 2 years. I also am a training professional. Let's go ahead and get everything started, regular old training style. The first thing I'm going to ask of you is to grab your phones. Yes, I am going to ask you to silence your phones. Before you do so, I am also going to ask you to text yourself a message so that way you can get down a little bit, one sentence or two, why you're here, why you are putting yourself out there to invite a foster kid into your home, or even why you're interested in helping kids in the foster care system in the first place. So take a little time, type yourself a little message, and make it something that when times are tough, because these kids are going to pull your strings, you can reflect back on that message that you sent yourself today and remember why you're sticking with it. And with that said, yes, silence your phones and put them away because I want all of your attention. Just an hour. Today, what we are going to talk about is what to expect. So the expectations that are on us as resource parents, the expectations that we should have for our kids, and what to expect on the first few days, few weeks, up to a month of at the very beginning when you first have your child in your home, and even before then with the things that you need to do to prepare, and the support system that you're going to need, because your job here is to support these children in their growth and development as their resource parent, and you're going to need support. Yeah. And I'm going to show you how to build your own system of support, because it doesn't come pre-built for you. It's something that you have to build yourself, and I'll show you. We are going to start with the expectations. So what is expected of me as a foster parent, as a resource parent, as a kinship parent? Let's take a look at what's expected of our kids. So as far as like what we do is we're here to provide support, meet our child's specific needs, meet them where they are so that way we can take them up to where they need to be, and then set expectations for the people around us that support us. We want to make sure that we have the expectations set for our children, more like the expectations that we need to set for ourselves and the way that we look at our children. So they are an individual. They will have complex emotions, and we're here to assist them in learning how to manage those complex emotions. And they take life in through a completely different lens than we do, because they're individuals, because they've had a different life than we have. So we want to be open-minded with that and expect the unexpected, because our children that are in our home are their own person, and they're going to do things and pull your strings, and we're not going to know where the hell these things come from. But when we understand that they're individuals and they come from complex places and they have complex emotions, we can better help them and help meet their needs. We are going to talk about 3 foster care myths, more framing in the context of how we squash the myths. As far as what it means to be a resource parent, basically, we're there to support our children that are in our home, whether they are foster kids, which means that you don't know them from before and they come into your home, or whether they are um, a kinship placement, which means that you know them or you know their family. So that way you sort of think like, oh, I know this kid. I'm not going to need to take this training. This doesn't apply to me because this isn't a kid that I don't know. No, this all applies to you because regardless of whether it's your sister's kids or your son's kids, like your grandkid, this child has not lived with you. And they have gone through some things that cause them to be in a foster care, kinship care placement. And there's certain things about their development that you're going to have to deal with. With that said, we are all resource parents, whether you know the kid or not. Our kids we're there to support them. So let's go ahead and take a look at these myths. The first one, this one was something that my mom was like, oh, you're going to do foster care? You better get a little one, because the little ones, you can mold them and raise them yourself and make them how you want them to be. And oh boy, has our little one shaped us more than that we have shaped him. So that's definitely wrong. No matter the age of the child that you invite into your home, they will challenge you. They definitely will. The reasons for that is because our kids are affected by trauma, and this trauma impacts their development, and this trauma impacts their behaviors. Everything about the way they process the world is going to be a reflection of how they process the trauma. And you're saying to yourself, oh, well, this kid seems fine, or in the paperwork, it doesn't seem like they went through anything real big. But honestly, just having been removed from their home and everything they ever knew, no matter how dysfunctional it might be, that is trauma enough. And they're going through their own development, and having gone through that is absolutely going to change the way that they process the world for the rest of their lives. As far as what they need, regardless of their age, our kids need help building relationship. And the primary one that you can help them build is the one with you. And they need to understand that. And that's so difficult for them because not only is their trauma developmental, it's most likely relational trauma, because the people that they're in their young lives building relationships with are the people that may have caused the trauma, or just being placed in your home and then losing the relationships that they had before and trying to forge new ones. That's not something that's typical in development. So we must work with our children on that. And also, regardless of how old they are, whether they're 6 months to 16 years old, they are individuals. They have their own perspectives. They have been through their own things, and the way that they see the world is going to be different. So, yeah, it doesn't matter what age your child that you receive in your home is. They are going to have their own individual needs regardless of their age. We're going to go very briefly into the trauma and brain development, because regardless of whether it's in utero trauma or relationship trauma in their teens. Children are going through development and they develop differently. And this affects their brain and how they function and how they process information. So the triangle, the upside down triangle on the left is going to be a representation of typical development. Then, so the brief overview is this: when you get information, when you receive information, it gets processed in your brain from the bottom up. So from the reptilian brain, through the limbic system, and then the neocortex. So the middle part, the green, the light green and the dark green here is going to be the limbic system. And that's going to be your social, emotional, trying to get calm and regulated and get yourself together. And then this orange part down here is going to be the reptilian brain, fight or flight. Am I going to die right now? Type of thing, like really on edge, and anything's going to get me. I got to make sure that when I'm receiving information, and we're receiving information from the bottom up, we have to make sure that it goes through our survival mechanism. Then we regulate and calm down. Then we enforce that through social and emotional competencies and our relationships. And then after that is all passed through, we can figure stuff out and problem solve. When it comes to that, we have to go through the bottom up. And when our kids, and even us as adults, like all of us, if during our childhood we went through developmental trauma, this triangle is flipped. So just this tiny survival at the bottom on the right is going to be huge. And we're going to have to muddle through our anxiety and stress and looking behind our shoulder, and everything's going to get me, fight or flight 24/7, with every single bit of information that goes into our brains is going to go through the bottom of this triangle, and it's going to be like molasses trying to go up through survival. So we have to help our kids get to a place where at least they get to the light green, where they're regulated and they can calm down. What we tend to do is go straight for the blue. Hey, why'd you do that? You have to do like this, and this is how you do it. And no, you can't talk to anyone when they're heaving and they can't understand because they're in fight or flight mode. After they get through the regulation and they are able to calm down, still they're not in blue because we're waiting to get through the social, emotional, and because of developmental trauma in our children is related sometimes with relational trauma, their social, emotional is also hard to get through. So let's say you do get through survival, then regulation, then social, emotional. Once you get to cognition, to start processing information, you're not going to get there. It's just going to be extremely difficult to, I'm already exhausted talking about it. Just give your kids a break, basically, because they have a lot to go through. Help them through their fight or flight mechanisms in order to help them cope with their strong emotions, get to a regulated state, and build relationship before they can even think and process and use their cognition. Honestly, our kids don't have challenging behaviors because they have a vendetta against us. They just have a hard time regulating their emotions enough to think through or plan anything. They just need a lot of help from us to figure out their emotions so that way they can even start to learn or do well in school. So with that said, highly recommend training how to parent children with developmental trauma. That was extremely helpful in understanding our kid and why or how we can implement interventions to help him with those behaviors and help him with his emotions. This is the next this is going to be the next myth. My husband honestly avoided doing foster care for a while because he was afraid whoever we invite into our home is going to trash it. And no, it didn't happen. It hasn't happened. I have heard some stories, but honestly, it's a part of your certification process to have homeowners insurance. So whatever is going to be broken, you just have to go through the insurance and they'll replace it. But this goes to show why it's so important to teach our children to cope with their strong emotions. This here is a strategy that is important because like we saw in the previous two slides, we were looking at that triangle. And if we can remember, the bottom was really tough to get through. And when you're on fight or flight, you really can't think or share, or honestly, you just have to write it out. So let's go through these. Breathe, guys. You're going to need to do a lot of that. This is going to sound crazy because at this point, imagine our kid flipping out, like throwing their arms, screaming, yelling, kicking, regardless of their age. You're going to see this. You may not, but if you do, I want you to be prepared. The first thing you do is wait for them to be calm. That seems counterintuitive because they're throwing a fit, and let's say they're 12 and you're like, a 12-year-old is not supposed to be throwing a tantrum. I digress. Our kids have their own way of coping with strong emotions, and we're going to take a look at this. First thing you do, honestly, is await. You want to make sure while you wait, to ensure their safety, you want to step back, because if you move forward when you're already in a hypervigilant state and feeling unsafe and feeling scared and feeling angry, and someone comes up to you bigger than you, you're going to be even more frightened and more stressed and more fight or flight. So all you're going to do is want to fight back. So no, you want to, as long as everything's safe, you want to step back, not leave, but physically step back from our child that is having a really hard time. After we step back, we want to empathize. Maybe not vocalize at the moment. We don't want to do anything to set them off any more than they are. Let them calm themselves down. But once they're getting more calm, you want to empathize and be like, listen, it seems like you're really having a hard time. Is there anything I can do to help? Like, man, that is exhausting for you. How can I help? You know, what can I do for you? And I feel like even just being quiet and keeping yourself calm is enough. But you want to make sure that they know you're not blaming them for their actions. It's not their fault that they're freaking out and they don't know how to handle themselves. They haven't been taught that. So you want to make sure that they know that you empathize with them. Now, this last part, we're going to do this last part way after they have mellowed out and we're doing something else, hours later, maybe a day later. You want to look back and say, hey, it seemed like last night you had a really hard time. You can ask them open-ended questions like, how can you tell when you're getting mad? Like what, how do you start, how do you know you're going to start feeling really, really mad? Or what makes you feel better after you're really, really like feeling overwhelmed? Like last night, it took you a bit, but after a while, you really made yourself feel better. What was that like? And those open-ended questions, rather than blaming them for their feelings, more like helping them assess the situation. Of course, they must be in a regulated state in order to do that, and ask them in a way that won't set them off again with whatever it is that set them off originally. And the very, very important thing is to make sure that you model a behavior, because we're all human and they need to know it's okay and normal to get mad, to be sad, to be frustrated, to be overwhelmed. We're overwhelmed all the time, but we have learned different ways to cope. So I can come in and be like, oh, I am so mad right now. You know what? I'm just going to go upstairs and sit down and chill out for a sec and breathe. And once I'm calm, we're going to have a conversation, because I can't have a conversation right now because I am just so, so mad. So that is an example of modeling that behavior for our kids, so they know, hey, she's mad, but she didn't flip out on me. She just went and sat down. Is that what I'm supposed to do when I'm mad? Or what is it that works for me when I'm mad? When she came back down, she seemed like she was fine, and we just chilled and talked about whatever it was that pissed her off, you know? And that's going to look different for our kids because each one of them is different, but it's also going to look different for us because each one of us copes with that strong emotions differently. But basically, we seem, if you can remember that acronym, you might be able to remember to step away, relax and regulate, and then model appropriate behavior and ask open-ended questions way after everything is breezed over, so that way you're better prepared for next time and they're better prepared and they learn from the experience. With that said, this is the third myth. Basically, when I started foster care, I was told this. When I was going through training, it's like getting my house certified. All you need is to make sure they're fed and that you have a bed and everything else is fine. No, that's way off. Like, we have to make sure that all of their needs are met. So sure, you have to like provide 24/7 emotional support. You have to set up and attend dental, doctor and services, school, extracurriculars, events. Yeah, but I feel like the most important is you're going to want to build a relationship with this child, and that's going to make your time with them more fulfilling, because they're able to listen and understand because they find understanding in you. They're able to respect because you respect them. And you also want to stick up for them regardless. They're your kid. And if they're going through anything, you're going to be there for them and just, shield them from whatever it is. But on top of that, they have needs. So what are these needs? The needs, Maslow's pyramid. This is not a pyramid, it's a triangle, but that's what they call it. Some of us have seen this before. Of course, we all know the basics. We need food, water, warmth, rest. That's the whole bed and fed nonsense. Yeah, that's not nonsense. They actually need that. But on top of that, we want to fill the entire triangle here. So security and safety is going to be difficult and different for our kids because they may be safe, but they may not feel safe. And that's a difference. So of course they're safe in your home. Do they feel safe? No, it's completely different than whatever they've been accustomed to for their entire life. They might have other expectations of what safety for them feels like. And for you, their safety might feel completely unsafe. So we have to understand where they're coming from. They may feel unsafe for no reason that you can understand. And that's okay. Just help them get to a place where they feel safe. They also need to feel they have these psychological needs, right? So they need relationship, they need to feel accomplishment. So let's say they have situations where they are a part of a sports team and they're doing really bad in everything else. Their behavior is crazy and we're really trying to work on everything, but you take away their sports thing because they pulled off some other thing. But that is part of them feeling prestige and a feeling of accomplishment. So really think about the ways that you fill the different slots here, and ensure that you're not punishing them in a way that removes one of their needs. Like you wouldn't punish them and not let them sleep, or punish them and remove food and water. Of course not. You wouldn't punish them and remove their only sense of accomplishment and self-esteem. We want to instead give them more of that. Also, self-actualization is important because you want to feel self-fulfillment. That's also something that they need. We all need that. We have different parts of our lives that make us feel like we're achieving our full potential. We want to give that to our kids. We need to be creative in the way that we make that happen for them. But in short, these are the needs that we have to fill for our kids on top of the other ones. So a lot, there's a lot of expectations on us, but I feel like we can do this and we have the tools. Definitely refer back to this so that way you can figure out ways how to specifically meet those needs for each one of our individual children. So now that we have looked at that, we want to like reframe these expectations and say, the expectations on us as resource parents, we want to provide support for our child and make sure that we find and meet our child's specific needs. And we want to meet them where they are so that way we can take them where they should be as far as developmentally and their growth, in the way that they foster relationships. We want to make sure that we know where they are so we can shepherd them in the direction where they should be developmentally. Then we have our expectations on our child or children. We know that our children are going to be individuals, they have complex emotions, and they take in the world through a different perspective. And that is informed by their past experiences. We must keep that in mind when we are receiving them in our home, and treat them like an individual, not like every last 8-year-old that you've ever met in your entire life, because no one's the same. They're not going to be like your 8-year-old neighbor or your 8-year-old cousin. They're going to be their own type of 8-year-old for themselves. If you decide to get an 8-year-old, I just picked an age. The 21-year-olds are the same. No, each person's different. Now I want to ask you to take your phone out for a second. That same message thread where you sent yourself a message, you might have some other notifications. But take this time out to send yourself words of encouragement. I gave you some information. Your kids are, you have a heads up now. Your kids are going to give you challenges. And we already sent a message about why you're doing this, I want you to send yourself a message about how, like, you're going to encourage yourself. So maybe your words of encouragement might sound like, um, armed with the right tools, I can persevere. That's a short one. Or stay cool as a cucumber. When life throws you a curveball, you can strategize and hit it out of the park next time. I don't know. I just made up a sports one for all the dudes. This one is, we're on the third one here. We are going to build a system of support. So we already talked about the expectations that are set for you. And then next one, we're going to talk about how to bring in a child into your home and the things that you'll need. But right now, we're going to, before you get your kid, you're going to need to set up your contingencies so that way you feel supported and you can lift this child up. Now, with this, we're going to first lean on our friends and family, the people we know. Before you get into foster care, you don't know anything about being a resource parent, but you know the people you know. And they're the ones that have been for you through thick and thin, and they're going to be there for you now. And some of the people that were there for you before might not be indicated for this chapter in your life, and some of the people that haven't been there for you before just show up and be present for you and your foster kid. So be ready to have your list evolve with time. But there's different ways that people can be creative in the way that they support you and your new foster family. You have people that give you toys and games and clothes and shoes, and then and you might have an invitation for a play date or to go out on a trip or go out for ice cream real quick. Those are super awesome and ways to relieve stress for yourself and for your kid. Also, you want to invite certain people that you know are definitely like ride or dies to a training session. If you ask your resource parent support worker, or PSW, you might be able to have them certified as alternates. And that just means that if something happens and you need respite care, which means basically like an overnight babysitter type of situation, or maybe you have to go somewhere for the weekend, or you have a work trip and you need someone to stay with your child, and there is respite. And that's also going to be another stranger that your kid has to go and be with. If you have your own respite, or you set up certified alternates, like my sister and my mom are my alternates, and my brother now, he's the best one. I don't know why I didn't do that earlier, but I told you, your list is going to change. Once you have them certified, they go through some training sessions, they fill out some paperwork and get clearances just like you are. And they'll be able to be there for you and your kid. And your resource parent support worker will have documentation of that. But don't be too hasty. At the very beginning, it will be very overwhelming for your child to meet all of your people in your list of people that will love on this child. So space out those meetings. Don't overwhelm your kid with like, day 2, you're going to have an amazing party at your house so that everyone meets this kid, or parade this kid around to all your family and friends and neighbors. Like, hey, look at my new foster kid. No, they're going through like a really hard time right now. It's not time to go have fun at party and meet a whole bunch of new people. That might be super stressful. So, play it by ear, keep it simple. What you want to do too is build your network of support, your, and I didn't, when I was told this at the beginning, I didn't really heed. I'm just like, what? Resource parents in this training? They seem pretty chill, but I don't know them. You know what? They're the people that really help you out, because your family, your friends, they're awesome and everything, but they may not already be resource parents. So my ooh, my network of resource parents, if I didn't get my uh, the check because I forgot to sign, it's a reimbursement. I already spent all my money um, making sure that things are set up for our child, and making sure that they have clothes and shoes. And I had to have their toys. I had to pay for their childcare out of pocket for the first few months. And I'm here waiting for a reimbursement check that's never come. I talked to my RPSW worker, and they're like, okay, give me a week. And I'm like, what's going on? I call a couple of my resource parents, and they're like, oh, call this number. Ask for Jackie. Jackie's gonna get you an email, and you'll get everything set up for tomorrow. I wasn't getting that information from anybody else. And my mom was just like, if you need extra money, I'll give it to you. My sister was like, oh my God, why'd you even get into that? But my resource parents in my little Rolodex, in my phone, in my contacts, they're the ones that get me through the different challenges that you're going to have handle. And maybe you're not going to go through the same things I go through, but if you have multiple people that are resource parents that know how to figure things out and get things done, yes, you need them, and you're going to have to lean on them. So collect the numbers. If you know anyone taking this training, get their name, get their number, go to resource parent cafes. Build your list. You're going to need it. Befriend your social workers. Not only social workers. I want to take this out on a limb and say, manage your relationships with all of the professionals in your child's life. The director of my child's school was instrumental in setting up extra services during school hours. His primary doctor was instrumental in helping us set up interventions to help him sleep at night. You really don't think about things like that, but our kids come with unique challenges, and the more people that we got on the job, the better. And the easier time we're going to have because we have that support. So yes, lean on your social workers, but also everybody else, your teachers, your doctors, your dentists, everybody, your neighbors, everybody. Just get everybody on the team. Everybody that knows your kid and wants to help, yes, invite them in. You know who else? Super important. Their parents. Yes. There's a reason why they're in foster care. But honestly, they are also our kids' parents, and we are co-parenting with them. So we have to figure out a way that we can build, I don't want to say you have to be their best friend, but you need information from them. You need their help trying to figure out what your kid likes to eat, because they won't talk to you. You got to figure out what their favorite song is, so that way you can make them smile. And then the way that you do this, you gotta, you can't just go up and ask like, what's their favorite song? maybe you can, but you want to make sure to be tactful about it. You might have to ask your DHS social worker, we call them KUA workers here, if it's okay. Sometimes there's court things or other things that might stop you from having contact with them. But if it's okay, then why not? You just if you see them during a visit, ask them and empathize with them and introduce yourself and make sure that you let them know, hey, I want to help your child, and I understand it that you're super worried for your kid. I would be too in your situation. And I want you to know that I'm trying my best to take care of them. Putting yourself out there like that really makes a difference. Our resource we are resource families. And we are a resource for families that have hit bottom and they have no support to raise their children. So let's say I go in the hospital and I can't be there for my kid. My mom, my sister, my brother, my dad, my 3 cousins, my aunt, everyone's going to stick out and be there for my kid. But what if I don't have anybody? Just like getting evicted from my house and then I'm homeless and I get my kid taken away from me. No, if I get evicted from my house, I'm just going to go live with my mom. So if you put yourself you try to empathize, it's going to be really difficult to empathize, especially with people that may have put your child in harm's way. But all I'm saying is just give it a try. We need them to be on our side because they still have signing rights and have the final say in certain decisions that turning child, like my child and their child together. And regardless of the situation that brought our kids into our home, it's up to us to understand and give grace to those that love our kids. Like, you might be asking, why would I want to do that? Well, if we model that behavior and teach our kids to give their parents grace, hopefully when reunification happens, our kids might be less resentful. It might be easier when their parents do get everything that the court is asking for together and reunify with their child. And there might be less resentment because you were able to teach your child to give their parent grace. Now that we know the importance and how and who to include in our system of support, let's move forward and talk about the preparation, the actual child that is going to be received into your home and what to do. So you ready? You set? And let's go. We are going to prepare our home. The resource parent support worker has already gone through with you about the guidelines for getting your home certified. Easy as pie. That's how you get it prepared. Just follow what they say in order to get your certification, and then you're golden. Nope. There's still a couple more things that they usually don't let you know ahead of time. Get your stash on. So not a mustache, you need a money stash. So maybe $300 to $500. That seems like a lot, but kids are expensive. You're gonna get reimbursed, but the reimbursement comes in like 6 to 8 weeks. And in that time, your kids still need shoes. They might still need a coat. They might still need a toothbrush. They need transportation. They They just need a whole bunch of things. Like kids need stuff. Your house is gonna be full of stuff for these kids. In the meantime, between the 6 to 8 weeks that you're going to be waiting for a reimbursement, you're going to have to make sure to provide for them. So having that stash ensures that your bank account is not going to be absolutely depleted and like in dire need of a reimbursement. Because the whole point is this is a reimbursement, not necessarily income. So we're going to have to provide for our children. So having that preparation ahead of time makes sense. Also, at the very end, I didn't highlight it, but I just want to make sure to emphasize, ask your work if they offer any foster related leave. Yes, my job gives 3 weeks from the date of placement, time off paid. My husband's job gives 4 weeks. Not everyone's as lucky. But what I mean is when you have a child placed in your home, there is going to be quite a bit of adjustment, and it makes things a little bit easier if you're able to take time off from work in order to handle things. I'm not saying you have to take time off from work, but ask. Ask if you can. Ask if they pay you. Even if they don't pay you, it might just be a better bet for you to take that time off. When you accept the call, so someone's gonna call you. Our call came at 11:35 at night. We want to make sure that we ask certain questions. So yes, they're barely going to give you any information. But ask for as much information as you can get. It's specifically any after school activities, any like what school they go to, calculate the commute, figure out anything that you can get information about the child. After you have that down, you may have a couple minutes to a couple hours before the child actually arrives into your home. In that time, you want to make sure to call your job. Last slide, I said to, before you even accept the call, ask your job if you get leave. This is the time to act. You want to call your job and say, hey, I'm going to get a kid today, so I'm not going to be at work for the next couple of weeks. Please pay me. If you guys have that set up. If you don't, there may be FMLA that you might be able to take if you have already accrued some PTO that you can take, or if you can take even some sick leave, anything, because if you can take the time off, please do. It sets you up for success and makes this time of acclimation a little less stressful. You want to, last but not least, call your network of support. The specific people that you met up with at foster care training, the specific people that you pick and choose from your personal network, your community, your family, friends, and neighbors that pledge to be there for you when you get your foster kid. You're gonna do a mass text message or call and be like, hey guys, y'all ready for this? And then your kid comes and they're all ready and they're out shopping and getting stuff for you and everything. Your next part here is the first day. So you got the call, your kid's coming, and then you wash everything. So you take into account everything that they have and make sure that everything gets cleaned. You make any doctor and dental appointments that you can, and then you go shopping. You take them shopping if you can. If you're, I'm not saying like pull them out from school or anything, but if you feel like that's something that might be helpful for them, then you make that call or talk to your team, like your resource parent support worker, and see what they think. But you want to go shopping with them. I made that mistake because I went and bought my kids shoes, a lot of shoes, and none of them fit. And then I had to return the shoes. But that's beside the point. Take the kid with you so that way you could also be a part of that experience of learning each other, and also go on a shopping spree, have some fun, and make sure that it's child centered, so that way they get to pick certain things for themselves, and appropriate toys and games and entertainment things, so that way they feel more welcome and at home in your home because they're able to have their own stuff. Next is going to be your first week. So right now you are going to play follow the leader, and you're going to set up experiences to enjoy together. And then, a rule of thumb is basically a busy kid is a kid out of trouble. So make sure you keep them engaged and busy doing fun stuff. You want to take note of any discomfort or outbursts that they have, like what happens before, during, and after. So that way you get to learn what to expect and any triggers. So that way you can avoid those or help them manage those behaviors and feelings. And then within the first week, you start to learn each other's living styles, and then you build the foundations for relationships. And then the first month, you have settled into a basic routine. You're still learning about each other, and they may not trust you enough to show their feelings. Sometimes that takes time, a lot of patience. But by the first month, you should have an initial visit from your DHS worker, social worker, and your RPSW, resource parent support worker. That wasn't really my experience. I didn't have a DHS worker for the first 8 weeks that I had our child here. But like I said, nothing's cookie cutter. We're just going to go with the flow. And then you want to begin recognizing areas of need. So you want to work with all of your resources in order to help fulfill those areas of need. You started a marathon. So now we talked about all of this, and your kid's not going to be there for a month. They may be there for quite a bit longer. And by setting up this foundation, you're better set up to acclimate your time and your life to living with a new person. So I hope that was helpful to you as well. Our objectives were basically to meet our expectations head on. So now we know what our expectations are. I want you to meet them. We want to build relationships through empathy and understanding. And we now know how to build our system of support, but we want to make sure to use that system. It doesn't help to have a list of people that are going to be there for you if you don't call them when you need them. So definitely call the people that you have set up for your system of support. In closing, we are just going to go over some things. Almost done here. We're going to get credit by calling our resource parent support worker. They're going to have you take the quiz, take the survey, and once you do that, they'll give you your credit hour toward your certification toward being a foster parent. Then what I suggest after that is to register for more resource parent preparedness classes. These 3 classes were the classes that made the most impact in my parenting as a resource parent. Here are some resources for resource parenting. If that is not redundant enough, the Parents Tool Shop was a really cool book. It's huge, but you don't read it front to back. You just go and pick and choose the different interventions that work for you and your child. And The Connected Parent, this one is, you just have to read it cover to cover a couple times because it's so helpful in building relationships with our kids. These are some behavioral health resources within the city of Philadelphia, where I am. And number one is CBH. They help our kids. Because our kids are in foster care, they receive medical assistance, so they do qualify for the service. And that number, I call it all the time. They help set up these supports for our kids because they're going to need support and you're going to need support. And the more, the merrier. Then I want to thank you for your interest in helping children in the foster care system. And I want you to reach out on social media and make sure that when you do take the survey, I ask you to be open and honest about how I did during this training, so that way I can get better and I can help you guys get better. Thank you so much. And remember to encourage yourself and others to feed the need and look out for the needs of our kids and make sure that they are taken care of. Let's go ahead and stop sharing. I really appreciate your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. You know, you have to make sure to talk